What's going on, guys? Rich here from CPAP Corner at Foot It. I'm going to show you guys what to look for in your sleep study report. The meat and potatoes, no vegetables here. You can request yours at any time from your doctor if you don't have it. I'm not going to go over every single detail like what a natus polysomnograph machine is or what nasal pressure transducers are. Say that 3 times quick. But I will simplify this report for you. If I missed anything important, put it in the comments section. This is for educational purposes, as some of our patients aren't educated at all leaving their sleep study. This is my sleep study from 2011. My sleep study was done at Baystate Medical Center at the Sleep and Neurodiagnostoc Department in Springfield, Massachusetts. This is me, all wired and juiced, ready to rock. So let's get right into it. First, your height and your weight will be listed in the introduction, along with your BMI or body mass index. A normal BMI is 18.5 to 24.9. Your BMI is usually directly correlated with obstructive sleep apnea. This is why weight loss is key if you're overweight. Further in the introduction, you will see who you are, why you're there, and what current habits you have that may affect your sleep, such as the times you go to bed, alcohol, drugs, etc., that have a direct impact on your sleep and may be correlated with your sleep apnea if you have it. Medications will be listed, such as opiates that could decrease the respiratory drive and relax smooth muscle in the airway that can also have a direct impact on sleep apnea. Under the description, they will list all the equipment they used and the standards in which they used it. You can really skip this part. Under sleep architecture, you're going to see sleep efficiency. All this means is the ratio of total time spent asleep compared to the amount of total time you spend in bed. Mine was 88.6%. Above 85% is normal. Good is anything above 90%. I don't really like this statistic unless you are getting a home study. Many people have a hard time getting a good sleep efficiency in a hospital for one night, hooked to a bunch of equipment. Luckily, I was able to fall asleep fine. Sleep maintenance is just staying asleep. The sleep latency is the length of time it takes you to be wide awake to falling asleep. The meat and potatoes for the stages of sleep is Rem sleep. You want to achieve this here. I only spent 6.4% of sleep there during this study, and a normal range is 20 to 25% in normal adults. This is significant because Rem sleep is the restorative part of our sleep cycle where the body repairs itself. The brain is able to maintain important neural pathways, which directly affects memory. Under respiratory measures, you're going to see obstructive, mixed, and central apneas along with hypopneas. Obstructive apneas is when your throat relaxes and collapses, not allowing air to flow in. Central apneas are when the brain stops sending signals to the respiratory muscles to breathe. Hypopneas are slow or shallow breathing. Mixed apneas are obstructive and central sleep apnea combined. What scares me here on my sleep report is that I have central sleep apnea. Central sleep apnea is the most dangerous form of sleep apnea. The AHI is the apnea hypopnea index. It takes the average apneas and hypopneas you have per hour. An average person has less than 5. Mine was 9.1. So the scale works as follows. 5 to 15 is considered mild sleep apnea. 15 to 30 is considered moderate, and anything over 30 is considered severe. The O2 saturation here is probably one of, if not the most important number on a sleep study. Normal adults are in the 95 to 98% range. Anytime someone drops below 90%, it puts a lot of stress on the body and tissues, especially the heart and brain. The partial pressure of oxygen drops off significantly below this point of 90%, which means it's harder for your organs to get oxygen because the oxygen is having a hard time being carried by red blood cells. What scares me is I spent over 6 minutes with an oxygen saturation less than 89%, and my lowest was 80%. Increased risk of heart attack and stroke under these conditions. We breathe in oxygen, and as a waste product, we exhale carbon dioxide. So the end tidal CO2 here is used to measure what our values are. Normal values are 35 to 45. The main significance of this test is to detect respiratory stress because elevated CO2 levels will indicate respiratory distress. Under EKG, this measures the electrical signals of the heart. This will test for arrhythmias during your study. Sleep apnea puts a lot of stress on the heart, and arrhythmias can show up during this time when normally they might not show while you're awake. My resting heart rate was 31 to 74, which is abnormal. Being a runner and a workout junkie at the time, my primary care physician ruled out any concern as I didn't have any symptoms such as passing out, lightheadedness, and my EKG was perfectly fine. Otherwise, normal values for your resting heart rate usually fall between 60 to 100. Electroencephalograph, or EEG, all those electrodes that were stuck on your head during your sleep study, that's what tests your sleep, what sleep cycle you're in and how much time you're spending in REM or restorative sleep. Limb movements, they're looking for restless leg syndrome or periodic limb movements that are associated with sleep disorders. Bruxism is simply clenching or grinding of the teeth. Patience assessment, like I said earlier, I was lucky to fall asleep. This is important because if you didn't sleep at all, you're probably going to get an inaccurate test where they may have to do a second test either at your home or again in the hospital. What I usually tell people is to go through your normal routine before you go to bed. Under recommendations, the doctor may recommend you go to a titration study where you'll have a mask, different pressures will be going at you to find out what your exact pressure is. But we're seeing more and more doctors go for auto CPAP technology, so you'll get a machine right away, and the machine will actually figure out what pressures you need to be throughout the night in a range. That seems to be a growing trend now. They will also advise you on your sleep habits. If you're overweight, they may ask you to go on an exercise and diet routine to drop weight. If you're using alcohol or drugs of any kind, that interferes with your sleep hygiene, so you may have to cut that out. In my case, they told me to not drink at all or have any alcohol, which I tend to do on the weekends. I'll have maybe 2 glasses of wine or 2 beers on a Friday or Saturday night. I still do anyway. I seem to sleep fine. I've gotten better since I've been on the CPAP for the past 8 years. It's been an ongoing struggle, but I love doing these videos because at that time I was not a respiratory therapist and I had no idea what any of this stuff was, and I wanted to educate you guys on this. If you have any questions, please email me at info@footit.com, or you can email our CPAP division at cpap@footit.com. Thank you and sleep well, guys.